My parents blamed me when they found out my fiancé was cheating with my golden brother. But after, I, 42 meters, have always been the disappointing son in my family, despite having a successful career as a research professor at a prestigious university. Today, after decades of staying quiet, I need to share my story. My younger brother, Alex, 38 meters, has been the golden child since we were kids, and their blatant favoritism has finally reached a breaking point that shattered our entire family dynamic. My earliest memories are tinged with the subtle sting of comparison. I remember sitting in my room at 8 years old, eagerly reading through my science books, while my father's voice carried from downstairs, "Why can't you be more outgoing like your brother?" Alex was only 6 then, but he already had our parents wrapped around his finger, entertaining their friends with his theatrical performances in the living room. While I was fascinated by the mechanics of how things worked, spending hours taking apart old clocks and reassembling them, Alex was putting on shows and getting all the attention. The pattern was set early. For my 10th birthday, I asked for a chemistry set. Instead, I got some second-hand novels because books are more practical. 2 months later, Alex mentioned wanting to try soccer, and suddenly our parents found room in the budget for private lessons, complete with brand new cleats and custom-made jerseys. When I asked to join the school science club that same year, Dad sighed about expenses and suggested I focus on making friends instead. My grandfather Martin was my only ally in the family during those early years. He lived a few blocks away, and his house became my sanctuary. While my parents took Alex to soccer matches and acting workshops, I would spend weekends with Grandpa Martin. He had been a high school science teacher before retiring, and he nurtured my curiosity in ways my parents never did. "Your mind is a gift," he would tell me, helping me conduct simple experiments in his garage or teaching me about the constellations from his backyard. The disparity in our treatment became glaringly obvious during our teenage years. When I was 14, I won the state science fair with a project on renewable energy. My parents didn't even attend the ceremony, claiming they had to take Alex to an important audition. That same year, Alex got a small role in a local theater production, and our parents threw him an elaborate party, invited the entire extended family, and even hired a photographer. High school was a blur of academic achievements that went unnoticed at home. I was editor of the school newspaper, president of the science club, and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Alex was dating the cheer captain and starring in school plays. Every dinner conversation revolved around his social life and theatrical pursuits. My academic accomplishments were met with perfunctory nods, if they were acknowledged at all. When college acceptance letters arrived, I had secured a full scholarship to study biochemistry at a prestigious university. Instead of pride, my father's response was, "At least we won't have to worry about your tuition." 4 years later, when Alex decided he wanted to attend an expensive private university for performing arts, our parents sold their vacation cabin to fund his education. "Alex shows such promise," they said. "We can't let his talent go to waste." During my college years, I threw myself into my studies, finding solace in the lab where my dedication and intelligence were finally recognized and valued. My professors became the mentors I'd always craved, encouraging my research and supporting my academic pursuits. I graduated summa cum laude and was accepted into a top PhD program with full funding. My parents attended my graduation but left early because Alex had a callback for a commercial audition. Throughout my 20s and 30s, I built my career methodically and successfully. I published extensively, secured significant research grants, and earned tenure at 40, a rare achievement in academia. Yet at every family gathering, the conversation inevitably centered around Alex's latest acting role or his marriage to Rachel, a successful real estate developer. My research breakthroughs in molecular biology were reduced to, "Oh, Eric's still doing his science things." I thought I'd finally found my happiness when I met Diana, a fellow researcher in my department. She seemed to understand me, sharing my passion for scientific discovery. We collaborated on several papers, and our relationship grew naturally from our shared interests. When she proposed last year, I thought I'd finally have something my family would celebrate, a traditional milestone they could understand and appreciate. But last week, everything imploded in the most devastating way possible. I had stayed late at the lab, finalizing some data for our latest paper. When I went to Diana's office to drop off the results, I found her and Alex in an intimate embrace on her desk. My married brother was having an affair with my fiancé. The betrayal was gut-wrenching, but what happened next was even worse. When I told our parents, their immediate concern was for Alex. "Please don't tell Rachel," my mother pleaded. "Think about your brother's marriage. She has a prenup, he'll lose everything if this gets out." My father nodded along, adding, "These things happen, Eric. You need to be the bigger person here." I've spent 4 decades being the bigger person. I stayed quiet when they forgot my birthdays but threw elaborate parties for Alex. I said nothing when they missed my PhD defense but flew across the country for Alex's community theater performances. I swallowed my hurt when they helped Alex buy his first house but told me I needed to learn financial independence. In the midst of this chaos, something unexpected happened. 3 weeks ago, I met Michelle at a university fundraising event. She's an architect, 45F, who designs research facilities, and she was there presenting plans for our new science building. Unlike Diana, who often competed with me intellectually, Michelle listens with genuine interest when I talk about my work. She asks thoughtful questions and shares her own creative process of designing spaces that facilitate scientific discovery. My grandfather Martin noticed the change in my voice when I called him last week to tell him about Michelle. "You sound lighter, son," he said. "Tell me about this architect of yours." For 2 hours, we talked about everything: how Michelle's eyes light up when she discusses the intersection of art and science in her designs, how she invited me to critique her preliminary sketches for the new research wing, how she remembered every detail about my work when we met again for coffee. The contrast between my family's reaction to Michelle and their treatment of Diana is stark. When I mentioned Diana at family gatherings, they'd immediately shift the conversation to Alex's latest achievements. But when I briefly mentioned Michelle to my uncle Louis at a recent family dinner, my parents actually paused their usual praise of Alex's acting career to listen. Of course, they managed to turn it around to Alex within minutes. "Oh, an architect? Did you know Alex's friend from his yoga class is married to a famous architect? Alex, tell Eric about him." The irony of my current situation isn't lost on me. I've spent decades excelling in my field, earning accolades that my parents barely acknowledge. I've published groundbreaking research that could lead to new treatments for genetic disorders, yet my mother's primary concern is whether I'm getting enough sun in the lab. Alex, meanwhile, has bounced between minor roles in commercials and community theater productions, and every audition is treated like he's up for an Oscar. Last month, I received the prestigious Morrison Grant for my research on cellular regeneration. It's a significant achievement in my field. Only 3 researchers nationwide are selected each year. When I called to share the news, my father's response was, "That's nice, dear, but did you hear about Alex's latest role? He has 3 whole lines in a national commercial." Later that week, they hosted a family dinner to celebrate Alex booking that commercial role. No mention was made of my grant. The day I found Diana and Alex together, I had actually stopped by her office to show her the grant acceptance letter. I thought she'd be proud. We'd worked together on some of the preliminary research. Instead, I found her with my brother, his designer suit jacket draped over a chair, her engagement ring glinting on her finger as I gripped the door frame in shock. What followed feels like a blur. Alex is casual, "Oh, Eric," as he straightened his tie. Diana stammered excuses about feeling neglected because I spent too much time in the lab. My parents' frantic calls after I told them, all focused on protecting Alex's marriage and reputation. Not once did anyone ask how I was feeling. The next day, I went to my lab as usual. Science has always been my refuge, the one place where results matter more than dramatic flair, where dedication and intellect are valued above social charm. My graduate students were discussing their latest experiments, and for a few hours, I could immerse myself in real problems with quantifiable solutions. But something had shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just hurt by my family's behavior, I was angry. Really, genuinely angry. Not the quiet resentment I'd carried for years, but a fierce, liberating rage. I looked at the grant letter on my desk, at the papers I'd published, at the students eagerly waiting for my guidance, and I realized, I don't need their approval anymore. I haven't needed it for years. That evening, I met Michelle for dinner. We'd been seeing each other casually since the fundraiser, but I'd been hesitant to share too much about my family situation. Something about her steady presence and genuine interest in my thoughts made me feel safe enough to tell her everything. She listened without interrupting, her architect's eyes focused and analytical, as I laid out 42 years of systematic favoritism and dismissal. When I finished speaking, Michelle was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made me see my situation in a completely new light. "You know, in architecture, we sometimes encounter buildings that look perfectly fine on the surface but have fundamental structural flaws. No amount of cosmetic renovation can fix those issues. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can do is acknowledge that the structure isn't safe anymore and build something new." She's right. I've spent my entire life trying to renovate a fundamentally flawed family structure. I've tried being the perfect son, the brilliant researcher, the understanding brother. I've minimized my achievements to avoid overshadowing Alex, downplayed my successes to spare my parents the cognitive dissonance of having to acknowledge them while maintaining their narrative of Alex as the special one. Last night, I had dinner with Grandpa Martin. At 92, he's still sharp as ever, and he's always seen through our family's dynamics with crystal clarity. "Your parents," he said, stirring his tea with a steadiness that belies his age, "have spent so long casting Alex as the star of their show that they've forgotten there are other stories worth telling." Then he took my hand and added, "But you, my dear, have been writing your own story all along. Perhaps it's time to stop letting them edit it. I'm writing this now because I've made a decision. Michelle and I have been discussing marriage, not officially engaged yet, but moving in that direction. When the time comes, I'm not going to have a big family wedding. I won't invite my parents or Alex. I won't subject myself to their inevitable attempts to make it about him somehow. Instead, I'll have a small celebration with the people who have actually supported me, Grandpa Martin, my Uncle Louis, my colleagues who value my work, and Michelle's family, who have shown me more genuine interest in 3 weeks than my own parents have in 42 years. Yesterday, Alex tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message saying he wants to explain and that I'm overreacting to the situation with Diana. He ended it by reminding me that he's my only brother and family should forgive each other. I deleted the message without responding. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own happiness over my family's carefully constructed narrative. I'm choosing to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not who they wish I would be. I'm choosing to celebrate my achievements without minimizing them to protect someone else's ego. I know there will be fallout when my parents realize I'm serious about cutting contact. They'll probably tell everyone that I'm being dramatic, that I'm jealous of Alex's success, that I'm breaking up the family. But here's the thing, I'm a scientist. I deal in observable facts. And the facts are that they broke up this family long ago, piece by piece, every time they chose to diminish one son to elevate the other. So here I am, at 42, finally ready to conduct the most important experiment of my life, seeing who I can be without the weight of their expectations and disappointments. I have my research, my students, my grants, and now, potentially, a partner who sees me clearly and values what he sees. Maybe that's more than enough. Maybe that's everything. Update 1. It's been 3 months since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, the good news, Michelle and I are officially engaged. She proposed last weekend during a quiet evening at her house. We were reviewing the final plans for the new research facility, and she had hidden the ring in a blueprint tube. It was perfect, thoughtful, understated, and completely us. To understand how far I've come, let me back up a bit. After the disaster with Diana and Alex, I threw myself into the new research facility project. Working with Michelle became my refuge. While my family was bombarding me with calls about forgiving Alex and keeping the peace, Michelle and I were spending long hours discussing how to design the perfect laboratory spaces. The engagement itself was such a stark contrast to my experience with Diana. With Diana, everything was a competition, who had more publications, whose research was more groundbreaking. She proposed during a department meeting, making it all about public attention. Michelle, on the other hand, made it intimate and meaningful. The not-so-good news? My parents' reaction. Word got back to them through my Uncle Louis, who was genuinely happy for us. Within hours, my phone was flooded with messages. Dad's first response wasn't congratulations, it was, why didn't you tell us you were seeing someone serious? Alex could have introduced you to his friend's architect wife for comparison. Then came the barrage of guilt-tripping. We're your parents, we should have been the first to know. Never mind that they hadn't asked about my life once in the 3 months since the Diana incident. They were too busy helping Alex deal with the stress of potentially being caught having another affair. The real drama started when they realized I was serious about having a small wedding. Dad called in tears, saying I was depriving Alex of his role as best man and breaking family tradition. When I reminded him that Alex wasn't even invited, he went silent for a full minute before launching into a lecture about forgiveness and family bonds. Speaking of Alex, his marriage is showing cracks. Rachel has been distant since Diana, my ex-fiancé, started working at her company's fitness center as a personal trainer. Yes, you read that right, Diana left academia to become a trainer. Apparently, she and Alex have been seeing each other at the gym. Rachel doesn't know yet, but people are talking. Alex has been calling me daily, leaving messages about how he needs his big brother during this difficult time. My research work has actually flourished during all this chaos. Last week, we received additional funding for our cellular regeneration project. The grant committee specifically cited the innovative lab design Michelle and I developed together as a factor in their decision. Her mom, a retired judge, actually understands the complexity of the situation. She told me something that really resonated. Family isn't about sharing DNA, it's about sharing respect. Her brother, a literature professor, has become one of my closest friends. The wedding planning has been surprisingly peaceful, mainly because we're keeping it small and meaningful. We're having it in the botanical gardens where Michelle and I had our first real date. She'd asked me there to discuss the greenhouse specifications for the new research facility, and we ended up talking for hours about everything from photosynthesis to architectural history. Tomorrow, Michelle and I are meeting with Grandpa Martin to show him our wedding plans. He's the only one from my immediate family who will be there, and honestly, that feels exactly right. He's been more of a parent to me than my actual parents ever were. I've started seeing a therapist to process all of this. She's helping me understand that it's okay to create boundaries, even with family. Michelle joins me for some sessions, and her insights as an architect often provide interesting perspectives. Emotional boundaries, she said in our last session, are like load-bearing walls. They're not about keeping people out, they're about maintaining structural integrity. I'll update again after we set a firm wedding date. For now, I'm focusing on my research, my future wife, and finally putting myself first. For the first time in my life, I feel truly seen and valued. Not for being someone's brother or son, but for being exactly who I am. Update 2. It's been another 2 months since my last update, and I wish I could say things have improved with my family. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and what should have been a joyful time of preparation has turned into another family drama, courtesy of my parents and Alex. We planned everything carefully, a small ceremony in the botanical gardens, followed by an intimate reception. The guest list was selective: my grandfather Martin, a few close relatives who've always supported me, my colleagues, and Michelle's family. I was explicit with my parents: Alex was not invited. Yesterday, I discovered that my parents not only told Alex about the wedding details but actively encouraged him to come. My uncle Louis called to warn me after overhearing Alex bragging about the surprise he was planning for my wedding. Apparently, he's already bought a suit that, in his words, will show everyone what a real star looks like. The most infuriating part? When I confronted my parents, they acted like they were doing me a favor. "We couldn't let you make the mistake of excluding your only brother," Dad said. "He's got a beautiful speech prepared about brotherly forgiveness. It will make the wedding so much more meaningful." I had to explain to them, yet again, that someone who slept with my previous fiancé doesn't get to make speeches about forgiveness at my wedding. Their response? "But he's going through such a difficult time with Rachel. She's been so cold to him lately, and he needs his family's support." Michelle has been incredibly supportive through all this. When I told her about Alex's planned intrusion, she immediately contacted our wedding venue to arrange additional security. Her exact words were, "The only dramatic performance happening at our wedding will be our vows." The irony isn't lost on me that Alex's marriage to Rachel is falling apart just as I'm about to start my new life with Michelle. Rachel has finally started asking questions about his frequent gym sessions with Diana. According to my uncle Louis, there have been some heated arguments at their house. Yet somehow, in my parents' eyes, this makes Alex the victim who needs support, not the architect of his own destruction. Speaking of Diana, she's been spotted with Alex at various places around town, not just the gym. My colleague saw them having lunch at a cafe near the university, looking very intimate. When I mentioned this to my father, hoping he'd finally see the pattern, he dismissed it as Alex being a supportive friend to someone going through a career change. Last week, my parents tried a new approach. Mom showed up at my lab unannounced, something she's never done in my entire academic career. She tried to convince me that excluding Alex would create a rift that can never be healed. I looked at her standing there, this woman who had never shown interest in my work, and told her, "The rift was created when you consistently chose him over me. It was widened when you dismissed his betrayal of my trust." Grandpa Martin, bless him, offered to run interference on the wedding day. At 92, he's still sharp as a tack and doesn't suffer fools gladly. "Don't worry about Alex," she told me. "I'll be stationed at the entrance. He wouldn't dare try to get past me. I've hired additional security for the wedding, though it breaks my heart that I need to protect my own wedding from my brother's intrusion." The venue has been given photos of Alex and strict instructions not to let him in. Michelle's brother, who works in private security, has also arranged for a few colleagues to be present, disguised as guests. My research lab has become my sanctuary during all this chaos. The precision of scientific work, the clarity of data analysis, it's a welcome contrast to the emotional manipulation I'm dealing with at home. My graduate students have noticed my increased presence in the lab, but they've been wonderfully supportive. 3 weeks until the wedding. I should be excited about marrying the wonderful woman who supports my career, understands my boundaries, and loves me for who I am. Instead, I'm strategizing how to keep my own brother from ruining my wedding day. I'll update again after the wedding. Whether Alex shows up or not, I'm marrying Michelle. No more letting my family's drama overshadow my happiness. Update 3. The wedding was yesterday. I wish I could say everything went smoothly, but my family managed to create one final dramatic scene. However, this time, something unexpected happened. The truth finally came out, and the aftermath was both devastating and liberating. Despite all our precautions, Alex and our parents showed up at the botanical gardens. My father was crying dramatically about how cruel it was to exclude them, while my mother tried to reason with the security team. Alex, true to form, wore a white suit that looked more appropriate for a red carpet event than a morning garden wedding. I was in the groom's suite with Grandpa Martin and Michelle's brother when they arrived. Through the window, I could see the commotion at the entrance. That's when something inside me finally snapped. Years of being the good son, of staying quiet while they diminished me, of watching them excuse Alex's behavior, it all came to a head. I walked out to the entrance, still in my wedding suit. Alex immediately started his performance. "Eric, how could you do this to me?" he said. "I'm your brother. I came here to support you, to show you how much I love you." His voice trailed off as he noticed Rachel's car pulling into the parking lot. Yes, Rachel, his wife, who apparently had followed him there. What followed was like a scene from a movie. Rachel confronted Alex about his relationship with Diana. He tried to deny it, but Diana chose that exact moment to call his phone, which was on speaker. Everyone heard her asking if he was still coming over later. Then my father, instead of addressing Alex's behavior, turned to me and said, "Look what you've done. If you had just invited your brother properly, none of this would have happened." That was it. The final straw. "No, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Alex chose to sleep with my fiancé while he was married. He chose to show up uninvited to my wedding in white. He chose to continue seeing Diana behind Rachel's back. These are his choices, not mine." Then I turned to our guests and said, 3 years ago, I found Alex and my then fiancée Diana together in her office. When I told our parents, their only concern was protecting Alex's marriage because Rachel has a prenup. They never once asked how I was feeling." Rachel's face went from hurt to furious. "A prenup? Is that why you've been pretending everything's fine?" she asked Alex. Through tears and mascara, he admitted everything. The affair with Diana had been going on even before she and I were engaged. He had pursued her because he was bored and because he couldn't stand that, for once, I had something he didn't. Rachel turned and walked away without another word. Alex ran after her, calling her name. My parents followed, still somehow more concerned about Alex's crumbling marriage than their other son's wedding day. After they left, something remarkable happened. Our remaining guests, my colleagues, Michelle's family, Grandpa Martin, and the relatives who had always seen through Alex's act, formed a protective circle around us. Michelle's mother, the retired judge, stepped forward and said, "Now, shall we have a wedding?" The ceremony was beautiful. The gardens were in full bloom, and the morning sun created a natural spotlight through the trees. Michelle's vows made me cry. She promised not just to love me, but to always see me, to value my mind as much as my heart, and to build a life based on mutual respect and understanding. Today, I've learned through my uncle Leonard that Rachel is filing for divorce. The prenup means Alex gets nothing. My parents are beside themselves trying to figure out how to help him, but for the first time in my life, I feel no obligation to get involved in the drama. Michelle and I are about to leave for our honeymoon, 2 weeks in New Zealand, where we'll visit some of the world's most advanced research facilities between hiking trips and wine tastings. It's the perfect blend of science and relaxation, just like us. Grandpa Martin called this morning to check on me. "You know," he said, "sometimes the most important experiments are the ones where everything goes wrong, but you end up discovering something revolutionary." He's right, as usual. In the midst of all that chaos, I discovered my own strength. I don't know what the future holds with my family. I suspect my parents will eventually try to reach out, probably to ask me to help Alex get back on his feet. But for now, I'm focusing on my new life with Michelle, my research, and the family we've chosen, one built on mutual respect and genuine love rather than obligation and competition. This will be my final update. Time to start my honeymoon with my wonderful wife, who loves me not despite my dedication to science, but because of it. Here's to new beginnings, clear boundaries, and finally being free to be exactly who I am.